So today we'll be going over how to draw the head from the 3/4 angle, and I'll be using this drawing as an example of what not to do. I'm gonna assume you've also watched a couple tutorials on this already, so I won't bore you with the super basic stuff like you can fit an eye in between both eyes or the ear fits exactly in between the nose and the eyebrows. And instead we'll be doing some more advanced stuff. So whenever you draw a head, always start with a center line. The reason being, a center line allows you to keep things symmetrical. So let's say we have a square like this. You draw a line in the middle, and then if there's a shape on the other side, the center line is going to allow you to replicate that shape on the other side as well. And this also applies in perspective. So if we have our square like that, center line is right there, and then let's say that's the shape on one side, we can do the same thing on the other side. So that's the reason why we have this center line in place. Also, if you're wondering why I put the center line right here and not here or here, that's because everybody has their own preferred position for the center line. In my case, I like to put it at this point right here. That's called the nasion, and it's where the brow transitions to the nose very sharply. From front view it would be right there, but of course you can't tell the depth from front view. But some people like to have it back here. Maybe somebody wants to have it all the way in front there, I don't know why. The second thing we need to do is place a horizontal line at the height of the eyebrows. That's usually where people like to place it. The reason we do that is because if we look at the skull, we have the center line here, and then the eyebrows are at a 90-degree angle to that center line. This corner is also 90 degrees, although it can vary based on perspective, because for example, let's say you've got a straight line like this and then vanishing point right there. In 2 dimensions, this corner right here would be 90 degrees, but because of the perspective, this is now less than an absolute 90-degree angle. I don't recommend you worry about this yet and just keep these as true 90-degree angles, because it's a lot easier to do, and once you get better at perspective, you can start to implement that. Now we're going to draw the nose, and for this we need to start with the skull again. So there's a bone right here which is called the glabella. That's going to be our base. Then we go down the nasal bone, which is this right here. And then from there, you would go down to the actual nose. But what's important is that you can actually draw a center line down the glabella, following the nasal bone, following the actual nose, and then it touches the skull back at this point right here, which would be somewhere around there, which would look something like this. There's always a little gap in between the skull and the skin because of all the muscle and fat that sits in between them. Back to our drawing, we start with the glabella. What's important to remember here is that this line at the bottom actually has to be centered on that center line. The reason being, the center line we drew touches the glabella at the bottom there, and if I show that from a different angle, it would look kind of like this. So let's say that would be the glabella right there. Then the center line continues there, and then the nose goes down there. So let's follow that center line. Then we follow that all the way down to the nose, and if we want the bottom of the nose to be there, then it would look something like that. Now we move on to the mouth, and the mouth is actually kind of simple because most of it is just proportions. If we look at the skull again, it would look something like this. If we go from the bottom of the nose down to the chin, then the opening of the mouth would be right around there. And then as you can see, this is 1/3, this would be 2/3, and then you would have 1 right there. So the opening of the mouth is at the bottom of that 1/3 line, which is actually halfway down the top set of teeth. It's not exactly in the middle of the opening. Now we just count bottom of the nose and bottom of the chin, and then it looks like the original mouth was actually in the right spot. So then from here, you would just draw the center line of the lips like I did in this image. And then all we have to do is draw the opening of the mouth, like that. You can draw the lips as well if you want, but I don't recommend doing that with line work because lines are usually used to outline dark shadows, like the opening of the mouth. And lips don't really have those shadows, so doing them with lines makes them look kind of weird. Now we get to the eyes, and these things are actually so complicated, they kind of require their own tutorial. So in this case, I'm just going to go over the important thing, which would be the borders of the skull. If we look at the skull, you can see there are two edges on it. There's one here and there's one here. From the 3/4 view, it would be this and this. The eyeballs sit inside of the eye sockets, which means they don't go past those edges. Which means if you draw the eyes on top of them, those also don't go past those borders. There is an exception to this, I guess, which would be this angle, where the eyeball technically sticks out compared to that outer edge of the eye socket. So then from the eyebrow, you would go straight to the eyeball and then you go down to the cheek. But that doesn't apply to this view. So all we'd have to do now is determine where those eye sockets are going to be. I think that would be a decent position. Let's do that on the other side as well. This is also kind of guesswork, so that just depends on practice. And then one eye would be right around there, and the other one would be right around there. Now, an interesting thing about this is that at the start of the video, I said that you can fit one eye distance in between both eyes. So if we do that in perspective, it would look something like this. This side, the closest one to us, would be the biggest one, and then the middle one would be the second biggest one, and then the one on the far side would be the smallest one. So in this case, this is the biggest, second biggest, and then that's the smallest one. From here, we're basically already done. It's just connect the dots. We follow the cheekbone down to the chin, which would be from that down to there. Then follow the chin, go up the jaw that way. Then we place the ear in that position, and then we just follow the cranium all the way around. And then we're done. Actually, there's one more important line, which is that one right there. That's where the head transitions from the front plane to the side plane. And I guess for this particular drawing, it's not that important, but sometimes when you're doing your shading, that does come into play. And now you can technically use this as a base to draw whatever character you want on top of it. If you're going to draw an anime girl, by the way, I would recommend shortening this distance to maybe right around there, because it makes it look just a little bit better. And that does it for the video. I know this was a long video for just one angle, but there was a lot to cover, and there's a lot that I haven't covered yet, so more videos to come in the future. Let me know what else you guys want to see, and I guess I'll catch you all later.